early State of the Union heading into this group?
Well, I think everybody this time of the year is excited, and we're one of those groups. We've got 16 new guys joining us, and they've been up here going to summer school and conditioning and working out, sometimes on their own and sometimes with Daryl Hunter's now training them in weight training. We've kind of switched gears a little bit there, and um, the early returns have been really good with the group of 16 as far as the grades they got in their bridge program, the behavior, how they've interacted with the older guys joining them. We haven't given them a lot of tests so far because we've just been doing skill instruction because we slid the fall back. Did it something a little different this year. Instead of starting our official fall practice before school, we're waiting until October 1st, so the arms will be more ready and we can do more scrimmaging. So, but what we've asked them to do, they've nailed it. The interaction and the chemistry seems to be very positive, but it's pretty easy to have good chemistry early in the year because you're not making lineups and travel lists and different things like that. But so far, the potential seems to be as good as we've had in the last several years on maybe some higher draft picks, so to speak. But then they have to reveal that and work towards that and how they fit into the team. But we're real encouraged. Their makeup seems to be really good, and I know their physical capabilities are solid.
Injury-wise, sounds like he dinged up. Is there anybody who's going to be held out from spring?
No, not that I can think of right now. We're in really good shape. In fact, that's another early sign was our medical staff said this group seems to be in better condition to start the year than some of our guys have come in with nicks and this and that. And Gabe seems to be just a little bit like a strained ligament in his finger, which kept him out of the Cape, which was a negative because he was postured to have hopefully a good summer back there, and he wasn't able to play. He learned a lot, and tribute to Gabe that he figured out a different way to get better besides participating. Learning from Coach Pickler, who he played for, and the staff there, and then those good players back in the Cape. He was real encouraged that he came back and got better in a subtle way, just some information-wise. And we had one freshman kid that had mono, but he's on the backside of that, and he's ready to go. So,
Goldie, sounds like, were you surprised he didn't get drafted? And then it sounds like he's going to be in the mix to be your everyday catcher.
Yeah, good for us to have a guy that's been around like him, and certainly he doesn't say a whole lot, but the manner with which he plays the game and practices, his toughness, his energy, his aggressiveness, his experience, that's invaluable to us. And including losing Soderman, and Goldie was knocking on the door to get some catching time last year with his investment in the fall, and we went in a different direction with Stutz and Soderman, and the plan for, I was really surprised that somebody didn't sign him. He had an opportunity to sign as a senior, but he chose to take the path of getting better as a catcher and maybe come back as a catcher and catch for us, and you add that to his utility ability and being a left-handed hitter, that might be you might end up getting some money to sign, and obviously the most important thing about signing is make your way up the ladder. So I think stranger things have happened with his skill. He might become a major league catcher. That's the plan.
What was the thought process this year in bringing in? I think you got three opponents scheduled for fall games, and you've not done it in the past. So what was the thought process behind that? The 16 new kids, or what?
No, in the past you could do that, but you would have to take games from the spring. So if you had 60 games scheduled with Hawaii on the schedule, you could take 2 and play in the fall and play 58 in the spring. The NCAA passed legislation that everybody could play 2, and you couldn't any longer take spring games and put them into the fall. So everybody around the country gets to play 2. In our case, we get to play 3 because we're playing an exhibition game against the Langley Blaze, a Canadian team. So that's exciting. And the other thing is we're going to play at Safeco. We're going to play UW at Safeco, and one of them, which Coach Horton's excited about that opportunity, and play a good opponent that went to the College World Series last year, and find out a little bit more when you play somebody else of whether you're your system works against theirs. So it's a good, it's only 3 games, but those will be exciting 3 days. We can see us competing against somebody else besides ourselves.
Steer seems to have had a little power, it looked like, in the Cape.
Steer had a good summer. In fact, he didn't make the All-Star team, and that was kind of his coach admitted that he might have been a clerical error. I don't know exactly what happened, but he played really well. He was really consistent for them, and we expect that from Spencer, and I'm sure he'll be right in the middle of things if we're successful this year as well.
Who's in the mix for you guys' middle infield spots?
Some young guys. We've entertained the thought of moving DeLuca in there. He's played second base in the past, so we're going to look at him a little bit. Kyle Fromke, Sam Nowitzki, and Max Foxcroft are the most logical freshman guys joining us. Spencer's certainly capable of playing second or short if we can develop another third baseman. But I think it'll come out of those 3 guys, Foxcroft, Fromke, and Nowitzki. And probably going into it, maybe one of our biggest concerns to have your middle infielders be both freshmen. They're awfully good kids, and they've been through it a little bit, so hopefully their aptitude will be such that they'll learn our system really quick and they can lead. And it's not only lead before the pitch, but it's decisions after the pitch when you play middle infield. So hopefully Coach Ullman will do what he typically does, is develop those guys very quickly.
And you move Goldfarb, that's taking a pretty good arm out of the outfield. If you move DeLuca up too, there's another guy out, but there's some depth you see coming in to compete for the outfield spot?
Yeah, we've got some returning guys, Dries and Williams and Vinny Tosti. We're really high on James Bell, who's a catcher by trade, but is athletic enough to maybe move out to the corner outfield. A.J. Miller is a first baseman, third baseman, but is athletic enough to play the outfield. So we'll kind of look at, we've got 20 good players, and we'll look at their characteristics and how we want our lineup to look. And the good news is they're more athletic, so that hopefully they can have that versatility to play more than one position.
The move of Jovan out of the bullpen to starting obviously worked very well. What do you want to see from him to lock down that Friday night role and just kind of continue to progress as a starter?
Yeah, he continued his excellence with Team USA. Kenyon invested a lot of time. He was back and forth with his Cape team, and actually it kind of affected his Cape performance. He wasn't as consistent going from Team USA and back and forth, and was trying to swing the bat with them as well. He wasn't given very many at-bats, so he's trying to do the same thing with us. I think if, you wouldn't put it in pen, but you'd certainly put it in pencil that he would be our Friday night starter. And the adjustment is we're going to take a look at Ryan Nelson as a starter rather than a closer, put more emphasis on him being a pitcher rather than a shortstop. He made the Cape All-Star team as a reliever, and then with Kobe Summers back, one of our starters, you think that at least to start with, those might be the guys that would be our weekend starters if it was 3-man or a 3-game series. So Kenyon is the perfect guy to be a Friday night starter, not only ability-wise, but emotionally. He loves the ball in the biggest situations, and he also is a good leader for the pitching staff. So I think the best years that I've had and coached where pitching's a consistent thing, it's come from guys like Tyler Anderson, David Peterson that fill up that Friday start in a really big way. So hopefully Kenyon can do that and everybody else can feed off that.
For Nelly making that jump, is that just you want to get your best arm into a starting spot, or what's the reasoning there?
Yeah. He may end up back in the bullpen because he's so valuable at doing that. He did a great job for us last year. And as you've seen in years past, if you have the luxury of having good, solid starting pitching, we put a high emphasis on the bullpen as well, because the back end of the bullpen is, especially at PK Park and Pac-12 games, has played a big part in our successful years. So hopefully we'll have a luxury of having, if it's not Nelly or Kenyon, somebody really good in the back end of the bullpen.
You anticipate Kenyon and Ryan still hitting potentially if they're both starting, whether it be as a DH or a off the bat, or even if you mentioned need to
Kenyon,
improve?
yes. Ryan, no. At this point, now we might change our mind. Stranger things have happened. If the young guys aren't doing what we need them to do defensively in the middle, then there's no question Ryan Nelson can play defensive shortstop. It's the offensive piece that didn't come along for him.
Off on a bit of a tangent now. If spoke a lot about baseball, I was wondering, as a student of throwing and of baseballs, I mean, if you had a chance to look at Justin Herbert's throwing motion, would you care to break that down for me?
Funny you say that, because last Wednesday, I believe it was, I was sitting right over here and Justin walked by, and tongue in cheek, I said, "Hey, you're coming out this year, right? You might be pretty good at baseball." And he smiled, and I said, you know, you probably throw about 97, 98 now because you're bigger and stronger. And he laughed. And so, no, there's been, I think he's going to be busy, and I think he's going to have a heck of a year. And I love watching him play football, and I hope he's in New York at the end of the year. He's got some work to do, certainly, but he's certainly that caliber of a player.
What's your reaction to the coach up the road calling it quits?
Surprised a little bit, but you know, he's kind of tinkered on that and thought about that, and pretty special when you can drop the mic when you win a national championship. And he certainly left the door open that he could come back, it sounds like to me, but that's his business. And if that's the last game that Coach Casey ever coached, he certainly had a great career and been very influential to a lot of people, and he's been an impactful guy in the Pac-12, so I congratulate him on a great career.